Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Collision. It's Daniel here again. We haven't done a review for a while. January was pretty dead for movies to talk about big movies, kind of a lull after Christmas. But we got kind of our first big, kind of buzzworthy movie of the year, Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, kind of latest anti-hero, superhero movie. A lot of people talking about this, so let's get into it. So this movie is kind of the newest and the kind of the DC side of the superhero films. Harley Quinn, she's an iconic character. You know, every Halloween or at conventions you see cosplay of her. She sort of has been around in the pop culture for quite a while now. We've seen her on screen in a supporting role in like the Suicide Squad, and she'll be in the new Suicide Squad coming up as well. But it's sort of the first time in in a live action at least, where she's kind of taken center stage as the character, the kind of the anti-hero, taking her perspective. So this is a movie I know a lot of people were looking forward to. Probably a telling sign. This is one of the only movies I can remember that has changed its title after already being released in theaters, which is not a good sign if you're starting to change stuff like your title after a movie's been released. And after seeing this film, it's clear that some of the issues in this film go far deeper than just the title of this film. Kind of without to bury the lead, this movie is a mess. For a lot of reasons, this movie just does not work. And again, just to be clear, I'm not a huge superhero person. I didn't grow up reading comic books. I enjoy the movies, but I'm not counting down the days to them. So again, I'm coming in somewhat fresh. I don't have a lot of kind of history with this character, any attachments to it. All I know is what the movie's giving me, and that's really not a whole lot. It's a noisy movie. Everything that happens in this is happening kind of hyper, going at 110%. But when you kind of start to sift through some of the noise of it, it just doesn't really have a whole lot to say, or at least anything kind of interesting to latch onto. It's just sort of a lot of kind of mindless action and noise and sound. And again, it's kind of ironic that this film, in a lot of ways, kind of purposefully tries to distance itself from the Joker. The Harley Quinn, starts off this movie having broken up with the Joker, her kind of abusive, evil crime lord boyfriend. She's kind of off on her own, going to make her own way in the world. And kind of all throughout, the Joker, like as a character, doesn't appear in the movie, but his kind of his shadow is in it. His presence is kind of alluded to all throughout. And it's kind of ironic that his film is trying so hard to distance itself from that character that probably the best kind of comparison for this movie for me was with the most recent Joker movie. Obviously, the character in that movie is different than the one that they're referencing. There's no connection between these two movies. But Joaquin Phoenix's kind of Oscar-winning performance of the Joker is really the best barometer for what this movie's kind of trying to go for. It's trying to lean into that hard R rating. It's trying to kind of shock, trying to kind of unsettle viewers while dealing with some kind of social commentary, criticizing some of the things in our culture. And so in a lot of ways, it's going for what that movie more or less achieved, depending on how you feel about the Joker movie. But it really leans into all the wrong things that made that movie, if not enjoyable for me, at least interesting to talk about. And this film, it wants to have something to say. It just doesn't know how to say it. So what is it trying to say? I think there's probably kind of two things I think as a Christian we can kind of latch onto or think through. And the first one is, this movie is not trying to hide the fact that it is very much kind of a feminist-driven, female empowerment movie. It's kind of marketed as this kind of team of superhero, this all-female team that's kind of out there to clean up the town, to make a name for themselves. The movie, as I said earlier, is kind of repeatedly hammers home that Harley Quinn doesn't need to be attached to the Joker character like she has in the comics and she has kind of throughout pop culture. She can stand as her own person, lead her own movie. So it's very much, again, early on in the movie, you have one of these characters on a stage singing to a group of men, singing it's a man's world, and it becomes very clear what this movie's trying to to go for. It's trying to be kind of a female empowerment, lift up ladies and women, which is fine. I think there should be films like that. All these characters in the film have a backstory. They're in the comics. They're interesting characters. There's a lot you could do with all these characters. For the way that it was approached in this film is this very kind of surface level, and I think it's just sloppy, where on the one hand it doesn't really elevate the woman in the film. The part that really stood out to me is Harley Quinn as a character. Despite Margot Robbie is a perfectly capable A-list talented actress. She's great. The problem's not her. It's just her character this has nothing to do. And as much as the film's trying to kind of show that she has her own agency and she's her own woman, really her actions have very little, if any, consequence on the overall plot. She's kind of a passive, the action, the plot, things that are happening, they all kind of happen to her or around her. And really nothing she does changes what's going on with her own kind of fate. She's just sort of almost a passenger in her own story, and that's true for a lot of the female characters. That this film seems to kind of equate kind of feminism or female power just with physical strength. There's multiple scenes where this team of ladies is kind of taking out this massive group of kind of all male villains and their oppressors and the patriarchy and all that. And they're just kind of physically killing and beating up these guys. And the film seems to kind of equate that as, aren't these women so powerful they can physically beat up these men? But kind of beneath the surface, kind of internally, when you look back at the end of the film, every one of these characters essentially is in they're the very same person they were when the film started. There's no growth. There's nothing that they kind of have to change or overcome in their own to seize power. It's really their only kind of agency is just to decide enough is enough. Let's start punching back and killing the dudes. And that's about the only kind of way that this film seems to know how to deal with this, elevating women. And in some ways, this film, even though it kind of wants to be a female empowerment film, it's really more making a point against kind of toxic masculinity. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, it's more of a, males are bad than it is females are awesome. I was trying to think back in case I missed one. As far as I can remember, every single male character in this movie is a complete scumbag, sleazy, trying to, sexually abuse or emotionally abuse, or there's not one redeeming male character in this whole movie. And again, I'm not bothered or challenged by this. It becomes so black or white that it really kind of loses any of the nuance that I think even the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie was able to at least touch on, kind of try and say some deeper things. The other theme that I think this, that we should think about is, and it's true for any of these films that deal with like the anti-hero. There's a reason why until maybe the last, 5 or 6 years, these sorts of films just weren't done, where you really focus on the point of view of the villain, is that it's hard as a filmmaker to get an audience cheering for the bad guys. We might like bad guys. We might like, Darth Vader might be our favorite character in Star Wars. We might like the villain, but we're not usually cheering for the villain. We might just like his look or kind of how cool he is. But to do a whole film that kind of asks viewers to get on board and just cheer for the villains, it's tricky. It's tricky at how you navigate that. And kind of the moral implications of some of that. And that's one of the things, again, we keep kind of tying it back to the Joker movie. One of the things how they got around that with Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie is they really didn't set his character up to be cheered. He's an interesting character. He's fascinating. He's captivating. But they never set him up as this is our hero. This is a good guy. And we're never really cheering for him. You're more just sort of waiting for the time bomb to go off. And that's what keeps you captivated. Where with Harley Quinn, the film is setting her up. They want you to be cheering for her. They want you to kind of be behind her, to be rooting for her as she fights against these other villains in Gotham. But her character herself, she really rides that line between anti-hero and just straight up villain. She's murdering people. She's abusing people. She's committing crimes left and right. She's feeling no remorse. She's selling out her own friends. She really doesn't do any kind of heroic actions at all. And in a way, she's really only the hero in this story, just in contrast to the people she's fighting are even worse than she is, or at least that's as the film's setting it up. That it's really not her, and I found this kind of problematic in a lot of ways. The kind of the ethical implications of this is just that you have audiences just sort of cheering for evil, cheering for bad things, cheering for crime. You're cheering for her to do these kind of despicable acts just because she's not quite as bad. And the whole movie just sort of kind of wades through a very kind of morally ambiguous gray area where there really is no right and wrong. It's not really, doesn't matter how you do it. It's just sort of what your intentions were kind of in the grand scheme of thing. And it's just, especially as a Christian, it's something to be aware of and kind of wrestle with, is that it's very much presenting a worldview and kind of a morality that is problematic. And I think as an audience member, you got to kind of reevaluate. Is it right that I'm cheering as she's just murdering these people? Is that okay as a Christian? So I think each of us need to kind of find how we deal with that. As you can tell, I was not into this movie. I can't imagine, unless maybe you have a history with this character or you just really love kind of the DC comic book property. I can't imagine that this film is going to satisfy a lot of people. One of my kind of, as I just look at film in general, is I think a film either needs to present kind of some interesting, kind of thought-provoking concepts or themes, things to kind of get your mind working as you wrestle through it. And then even if it's not a fun movie, it at least gives you something to kind of to work with. But if it's not going to do that, if it's just going to kind of give you spectacle and action, then it at least needs to be a fun movie. It needs to just entertain you and not even try and, present any kind of message or cultural commentary. Just be fun. And the problem with the Harley Quinn movie is it fails at both of those. It's not presenting anything profound, even if it maybe thinks it is. There's not a whole lot of intellectual depth to this movie. But at the same time, it's also just not a very fun movie. It's not, most of the humor falls flat. Harley Quinn's character is kind of quirky at first, but, by about the end of the first act, some of that quirkiness just becomes more obnoxious or annoying than it is, fun or endearing. So in the end, for me, this movie, it really doesn't have anything of value to offer us. But hey, if you do see this movie, let me know. I'd be curious to hear from you if you found some positives in this film. If you found more takeaways than I managed to find, I'd be very curious to hear what those were. Because again, I'm not seeing them. But hey, we all approach film in a different way. But hey, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for we have a lot of new reviews coming up. The movie season's kicking into high gear now, so there's a lot of big movies coming up, so I hope you'll stick around to check that out and talk about those with us. If you haven't done so already, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel, keep up with all our videos. Make sure you hit that like button. I just want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you'll continue to collide with your world for Christ.